I already introduced you with Professor Mori in the first lesson. He's a former professor in bioethics at the University of Torino, one of the fathers of bioethics in Italy, and not only a philosopher, but also an activist with his association Consult of Bioetica, with the journal Bioetica. So he will talk today about what is ethics, how ethics evolve. It will be an interactive lesson. We are many, but let's try to be reactive and reply to questions or make questions. Please, Maurizio, grazie.
Okay, thank you very much, Guido. Thank you to every one of you. I am just speaking without any slide, but I have an organized outline. So the first question is, in my lecture today, I have two lectures. And in the first one, I thought it could be useful to devote it on the generality. Try to understand what is an ethic or a morality, and try to see the main features of a morality, how it is structured. And my first question, my first point is, I ask you to make questions. If you have any doubt, maybe sometimes a student says, well, but it's stupid, why should I ask this question? Please do it, and I try to give an answer if I can, or at least try to give the different answers that can be given to any question. So this is the first, you have an opportunity to have a response to your queries, if I'm able to give it, but try and interrupt me. Don't you have many ways to let you hear in the video, and interrupt me if you want to. Now, this is the premise. The first point is methodological. I try to make clear, sometimes I might appear to be trivial, in the sense that I don't know you, and I want to be very simple. Maybe I could be simplistic, I know, but in any case, I try to define the terms in order that you can follow the discourse I try to suggest. Now, the first point is, what is ethics or morality? This is the first point of my presentation. Ethics and morality are used as synonymous. They have the same meaning. I know very well that many people in many different contexts are distinguishing between ethics and morality. This is not my case, at least in this context. Ethics comes from Greek ethos, which a term, ethos, which has been translated into Latin with the term Moris, and which has been translated into English and other European languages with the term of morality. So morality and ethics have the same meaning and can be used in changing one and another. This is the first point. The second point, what is an ethics or a morality? The answer is morality is a social institution. It is something that is given in a society, and it's something which is interiorized into people. Now, what is an institution? Because this is a method. Now, an institution is an organized system devoted to some purpose. We have social life is organized and has interaction. A social institution is an organized interaction of something. Examples of institutions. So just to explain what an institution is better to give examples of institution. Now, an institution is law or the state. The state and law are solid institution because it is something that you can see, and they have hard construction, like, for example, prisons, courts, barristers, judges, and a lot of people working in such an institution in which everything is written. And you have rules, written rules, stating roles, tasks, and everything. This is an example of what an institution is. When you get into a court, any movement is stated, and you have the right to speak when someone gives you the opportunity to do it, and everything. There are other kind of institutions, like, for example, a language. A language is another institution, but it is different from the institution of law, because the language is a liquid institution. You have a language that it is something which is pervading our lives, but it's floating in the air, is not something solid. You don't see exactly a language as you see a court or a prison, you know. Now, let's speak. Who decided a language? Because morality is an institution which is not like law, because law is solid. Morality is floating like a language. So, for example, who decides what a language is and what is the meaning of a word? Any one of us decides. When we use a language, we participate to an institution, to the institution of language, and we modify a language. But a language is not created by us. We contribute to the language, but the language is stronger than any of us. The language existed before we came into the game of participating to a language, and will continue afterwards, even if we can contribute to it. Something similar is with morality. This is a point. We do not invent our morality, but we received morality from the past and from the institution, I mean from the society in which we live, and morality is stronger than us. We enter in a morality, but when we are inside a morality, we participate to a morality and we can contribute to change it. This is important because, for instance, sometimes, very often, people say, well, this is right for me, or this is just for me. This expression, just for me and unjust for you, it's a wrong expression. It's a wrong expression because what is just independent on the subject. It is given by the rules of a morality. It is like to say, if we had to say, this is what I mean with something. No, the meaning of the terms are given in a language. Of course, we can modify slowly, and sometimes we have also the fortune to create a new word. To create a new word is like to create a world, you know. Sometimes in having the fortune of being luck to invent a new term is like to recreate a world. That is something important. Now, the language is an institution which has many purposes. It is to inform about something, to praise people, to commend, to make questions. Law and morality have a common purpose, which is to coordinate human behavior. We live in a society. Cooperation is very useful because when human beings cooperate, they can increase the welfare and they can increase utility in their life. And also people are social and like to live in a society. And to live in a society, you need to cooperate with others and to coordinate your behavior with the behavior of others. When you go on a road with a car, that is a normal, you have to be careful and to see what the other one will do to you, and you have to react according to what the other does. And in order to do it, we have rules, and we have to follow rules. And this is the task, the purpose of a law or, of a morality. which is the difference between law and morality or ethics. They have the same purpose, but they reach the purpose of the purpose of coordinating society in two different ways. Because morality, no, let's start, because law is obeyed because there is a sanction, a penalty. This is the feature, the main feature of law. Law always has something or threaten a pain. If you don't obey the law, you are punished. And the sanction is a sanction. You have to go to prison or you to pay a fine. And the sanction is in modern legal systems is written and it is stated before in advance, and you already know what it is written. Morality has a sanction, but is not a written sanction, and sometimes it may be abnormal, it may be different, but generally this is the main feature of morality. Morality is obeyed spontaneously and for intrinsic and intimate conviction of a person. Morality, why you obey a law in order to avoid a sanction? You obey morality because you are convinced that it is right, and you do it by yourself because you believe it is just. This is the main feature of a morality. Morality is obeyed because you think it is just to attend, to follow a moral rule. You think that it is valuable, and you do it spontaneously. You do it by yourself, and you are ready to struggle to affirm the moral value. This is the main feature of morality. Morality is a floating institution like language. It is not very clear. Now, we have ethics committees. Ethics committees is a sort of institutionalized, is a hard institution because they have rooms, they have secretaries, they have maybe a budget. It is like a little court, and so in a sense, morality is or ethics is starting to become similar to a legal system. But generally speaking, morality, as we know, it is a floating institution. It is a liquid institution, but it is very strong because it is inside, in the minds and in the spirits and in the emotion of people. Because morality is what brings us to act spontaneously by intrinsic feeling. And this means that morality is connected with feelings, passions, emotions. because we are led to act because of feelings. And I'll speak later on the relation and the role of emotions in morality. Now, if this the question, I mean, this is the first point, big question, this idea that I wanted to say. Morality, we need social coordination, and morality is the institution that provides to give spontaneous motivation to act for such a coordination. Now, the point is, where does morality come from? Which is the origin of morality? Which is similar to the other question, which is the purpose of social coordination? Is it only, as I said, that we like it to be social, or there is something else? This is a major question. And I must say that if what I said before, namely that morality and ethics is a social institution, is a statement which can be accepted by everyone, any kind of scholar. Now, what I'm saying is something which becomes problematic because is not agreed upon by everyone, but we have a split in different visions. Because some people think that morality comes from God or from nature, which is supposed to be a kind of longanimous of God or of a divine design. This is the point. Why do we live? Which is the goal of our sociability, our social life? Is it a goal that we like it and that's it? Or is it that we have something more than it? Here we have two different perspectives, because some people think that moral rules are coming from God. In the Bible, in the Quran, in some sense, God gave the basic rules of morality. Other people think that morality is intrinsic, and there is no such derivation from God. Here we have, this is the only quote I make in philosophy, a sort of dilemma which is called the dilemma of Euthyphro. Euthyphro says, is something moral because God commands it, or God commands it because it is moral? Do you understand what is different? God commands it because it is moral, or it is moral, it is ethical, it is good because God commands it. In the first case, it is moral because God commands it. Morality is dependent on God. On the other hand, morality is independent of God and depends on itself. Of course, there is a variation on the point. Variation is to say, well, morality is dependent on nature. Nature gives you some rules, and these rules can be assumed as a criterion for moral norms. This is an excellent move, but it doesn't solve the problem, because the problem is just simply change on another question. Is nature working because there is under nature a divine design, or nature is working by itself without any design, any divine design? This is the second question, which brings us back to the former one. And so this is the real problem that we have. Morality is a social institution valid for itself, or morality is a social institution which is devoted because human life is something that is aiming to an afterlife. This is a major question, which is not, I mean, we know that there are different views. I can say that in history, this is something that I can describe. In history, morality was in some sense dependent on religion. When always morality had a kind of divine inspiration. In the last 4 centuries, mainly in Europe and United States and Western world, we had this enormous project, social movement, which is called secularization. Secularization is a cultural movement saying, aiming to the so-called disenchantment of reality. Reality, if it is seen in as having an afterlife and having a divine order, reality is in a sense enchanted because it has meaning which are different from what occurs, from mere causality, and there is a symbolic treatment or symbolism connecting this world with another world which is metaphysical, eternal. Everything is changing in this world, but we say that there is another world in which things are eternal and immutable and will stay in another world together. And now morality is a sort of stair to the other world. If you behave correctly, then you reach the other world. This is the idea that the social order is a social order which is inspired to something extra. On the other hand, secularization denies it, says no, there is nothing else. There is not another life in the heaven or somewhere else which is eternal. Of course, here we have a radically different positions, because if those who think that morality depends on religion think that if you violate morality, then the social order will collapse and society will finish, will be disrupted. On the other hand, the other people say, no, morality will not finish, will change, and will have a new social order which is better than the former one. So this is the dilemma, and I think that at this time of the world, it is important to look what is going on, because we are in a time in which things are changing, and artificial intelligence is one of the main factors which tries to modify the social coordination that we have. This is now I want to try to introduce some practical things, because a coordination is a coordination in some according to historical reality. And if you change the way in which you can coordinate things, then you need different rules to have social coordination. This is the major fact. And now artificial intelligence is changing the way in which we relate to us, relate to other people, in which we can coordinate, we can have something like morality should continue to depend on God, or morality is a social institution informed by a rational design, not a divine design which is stated according to God's plan, but to rational design, where rationality is meant in with two criteria. One is internal coherence. Being rational means to be coherent internally. You cannot say one thing and the opposite, but you must be, in a sense, consistent. And in the second point, dependence by rational principles. So, for instance, the major principles of morality is equality and is benevolence, in the sense that do what is good and avoid any kind of harm. Now, here we have a major distinction between two different ways of conceiving and perspective morality, whether morality depends on religion or whether morality is secular. This is the major point. And of course, when we create a machine, and a thinking machine, as in artificial intelligence, creating a machine is, in a sense, to create a part of humanity. And this is the point in which we have to think how can we create a machine. A machine is something that is done as we are done. And so should we introduce in the machine a divine goal, a divine purpose, or should we introduce in the machine only a rational purpose? This is a first question. The second point is that having, and this is having a religious a religious morality implies to have absolute prohibitions. Absolute, what does it mean to have absolute prohibition? An absolute prohibition is a prohibition which does not admit any exception. Absolute means free from any condition, not dependent on any condition, absolute. So an absolute prohibition is the shadow of absolute of God. God is absolute, is unchanging, is eternal, is transcendent, is in some way different from the normal reality. And the moral absolutes are the shadows of the absolute, which is God. Now, the problem is, do we think that there are absolutes? Can you think a moral absolute, something that can never be done in the sense that is never permitted, is never right to do it? Not, of course, we do many wrong things, as a matter of fact, but we say it's something that should never be done. This is saying with absolutes. For in a religious morality, there are things which you can never do because what is important is to gain the heaven, the paradise. And so you should be ready to abandon this life to reach the real life, which is the afterlife. That is in a simplistic, but this is what is true. On the other hand, you say, no, you have always to bargain to have a balance between what you do, and there is no absolute. Now, I would ask you, can you think of an absolute moral prohibition, this is a question. Murder. What do you mean with murder?
Taking the life of another person.
You mean killing someone?
Yes.
Well, don't you think, can't you think of any exception to killing someone?
For me personally, no, because even if somebody does the unforgivable, it's not for me to decide if they have the right to live. I know people disagree, but this is my...
No. So you mean that if someone is coming to kill you, you do not defend yourself?
You do. You try.
You do.
Yeah, if you can.
Yes, if you can defend yourself. And can this defense come to kill the aggressor? If this is the only mean, the only way to stop him or her.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
The question is, do you admit that is licit, is permitted to kill someone for self-defense, if self-defense is the only way to stop the killer?
As long as it's not done intentionally, if that makes sense.
Well, but it is real. I mean, you have no way to stop the aggressor, only by killing him. Is this way permitted? Because if you think of this exception, I tell you, because there was a disagreement, let's say, between someone like Gandhi said, or there are even some religious conviction, say, no, you should never, Mormons, for instance, you should never kill someone. You should, you are ready to die yourself. And Gandhi, non-violent people say, well, if you want, you kill me. I cannot, sorry, maybe it's better if you speak, because I cannot read the chat. I see from time to time something, but it appears only for a few seconds. So, in case, ask a question and I will try to respond, because I cannot follow both the things. But now, just a minute, and then Luca. Just a minute, that I want to present this distinction. There are pacifists who say we are ready to die and we don't want to kill even an aggressor to ourselves. Then some others said, let's assume that there is an aggressor who is ready to kill 10 children, and you have a rifle, a pistol, whatever, a knife, and you can kill the man. Let's assume he's a man, the man who wants to kill the children. You are ready to die yourself, but you say, I kill in order to save the children who are not able to defend themselves because they are very very vulnerable. So this is another point to say whether sometimes killing admits exception. But now I leave the word to Dorothea and then to Luca. Please, Dorothea.
Oh, thank you very much. Actually, I wanted just to clarify a bit that can we say that, for example, the 10 Commandments in a religious sense, in the religious context, are such moral rules? Because I thought they're very much connected with what you said about institutions and whether moral rules are given by God or created by people in the society, because we know that the 10 Commandments would be, we know that this is not mandatory to follow, but if you do those things, you will face them either a punishment or you just probably won't have very nice life.
What do you mean?
And it's like that these such rules are moral and ethical, like within the distinction that you made earlier.
Well, in the distinction that I made, it is that if something is commanded by God, it is for a religious person. It is good because it is commanded by God. That's it.
All right. Well,
This is what sometimes happens, saying God says that there is no distinction. I mean, marriage should be only between a man and a woman, for instance.
mm-hmm.
And because it is in nature, and nature is supposed to be informed by a divine design, then that's it. And you see many people obeying strictly to these rules. And they say since they have been given by a long-standing reality, a traditional reality, since the beginning of humankind, we had such rules, we have to obey them. On the other hand, you say no, because these rules do not guarantee a good social coordination, because in our time, circumstances, social conditions has changed, and we have to modify the social coordination. So we need new rules, and do these new rules in order to guarantee welfare or self-realization of people. These rules has to be changed, and we need a new social coordination. This is a distinction between the two stuff, and artificial intelligence is extremely relevant in this change, because artificial intelligence is changing the relationship of humankind, of social coordination, because we now can communicate more rapidly in a different, and we have new needs. This is the distinction. And in this fact, a major point is that traditional or religious moralities have absolutes. Of course, now, I tell you, for example, inside many Protestant churches, they deny it, but in some others, religions, I mean, some religions are changing, some religions are modifying the rules, but according to the most traditional views, religious are absolute. And now I'm trying to understand and to ask you whether you can think of an absolute, you can even think of an absolute prohibition. And someone said killing. I try to say killing for self-defense, is it licit, permitted, or not? Silvio. And then there was Luca.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning, Silvio De Magistris. Please.
I agree that we can't be absolute, because there are some examples and there are some ethical approach, for example, utilitarianism or consequentialism, that they think that we have to act for the most well-being, for the most people well-being. So maybe if I save 1,000 people, killing one people, maybe is a good action, yeah, for that point of view. And there is some example for the I don't know the English term, when we have to child that maybe one can live if they are connected, yeah, and we have to cut and one die and one live. So maybe in that time we have that occasion we have to kill someone. So I think that we can be absolute, and I don't think that the divine approach is the good one. I think about scientific approach, where we can share in a global way. So secularization, I agree with scientific approach. So we have to decide for the best of the most people, and maybe for the planet, because I would like to say, where was God before 400,000 years, where the human being there weren't, yeah? So speak about the nature, yeah? So I think something more intrinsic morality that is go behind the human being too. Yeah. So,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Silvio. I have a comment, very short. There is a very strong distinction between science and ethics, because the goal of science is another institution, and the goal of science is to describe the world, to tell us how the world is. The goal of ethics is not descriptive, it is normative. Ethics has a goal to evaluate the world, to say whether the world is good or bad, not how it is, but whether it is good or bad. So there is a distinction between describing the world and judging, evaluating the world. And you cannot derive from a mere description the evaluation. This is something important I wanted to say. But now I had many, Itoro, Abraham, Daniela, Whitman. I asked Guido to cancel Silvio hand. Okay, thank you. Please. Itoro, Abraham. No. Then Daniela Whitman, and then there was Luca.
Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to say to what Silvio said. I think it's super difficult because, I mean, there's also the sentence like wrong is wrong, even if everybody is doing it. And I think it's super difficult. Also in society, we sometimes go like the mass of the people go maybe really a morally wrong way. And then
Sorry, can you speak slower, because otherwise
okay.
sorry.
Yeah, I mean, like I thought of the sentence, wrong is wrong, even if everybody is doing it. And I think it's a super difficult question in ethics and also morality. I mean, we are always, if we think about morality, it's always about masses of people who have more or less the same approach of what morality means to them, more or less. And if we decide on the basis what is better for the mass, it can also be that we as a mass are wrong. And then we take the wrong decision, you know? So how can we always know as a mass that what we are doing now is right? You understand?
But
It's so difficult, you know? Sometimes we think we are right, and especially I think with science, as we rationalize everything nowadays, it's difficult. Everything is big data, everything is numbers, it's like statistics, it's like, and also statistics can be wrong interpreted and everything. And then we go with the argument of, that's better for the mass because statistics says it. Yeah, but what if it's wrong? What if we all go like a mass psychologic phenomenon, yeah? That we all think, this is the right way, and then we're doing something wrong to fewer people, to less people, number of people. Yeah, but we're wrong actually. This is sometimes happening, and
yes, but
yeah.
Daniela, you cannot say, I mean, this is very unlikely that happen, that everyone is doing what is wrong, but doing what is wrong should have a wrong result. You cannot say everything is wrong, but then things are good. Can I, of course, you can say that in the afterlife, everyone will be condemned. But can you think of a God which or who wants what is bad for the people, that everyone or most of us is in the inferno, is condemned, or you think that God is good and wants the people will be saved? This is what the issue of social coordination and what is the and possibly this is one reason for which some religions are slowly changing and modifying the idea. What I wanted to say to the former meaning is not only consequentialism. The issue that he said it is good to kill one in order to save a million or 1,000. You know,
Is
this
this
is not
always
only.
true?
Hmm?
Is this really always true and moral? I mean, like, isn't there some, I can remember that I read something that there's a more differentiated perspective on that, or is it always on morality that if it's less or more, because if we, yeah.
No, I mean, of course, it depends on circumstances. But
Yeah.
let's
Okay.
think of this. Someone in the chat wrote that it is always because our problem is whether there are absolute prohibitions. And the first prohibition which has been mentioned is about was about killing. Killing is never permitted. I try to say that killing in self-defense is permitted. And sometimes it is even mandatory. So this is, I know that is a strong point, but killing is, we call it a prima facie duty, not an absolute duty. Prima facie is a Latin term meaning at first sight, in first, to a first determination, you know, prima facie, which means you have an obligation to do it, but this obligation can be overridden by a stronger claim. Now, morality very often has conflicts of duties. We have a duty is something, this is what I said, a social institution means a psychological social institution. A duty is a sort of string pulling us, you know, or pulling us to do something, and sometimes we are pulled in different, are led in different direction, and we don't know exactly what to do. If you have an absolute duty, the absolute duty means that you that duty has always a priority. Do you understand what I mean? Now, sometimes we say that there is no absolute duties, but we have different dilemmas and different choices. This is a problem. And these distinctions are changing according to social situations, and also to opportunity that we have it to do it. Think, for example, one absolute duties in some religion, and then Evangelia has a flow. I finish this sentence and then I give the floor to Evangelia, but the point is, think, for instance, an absolute, so-called absolute duty. Someone wrote working with children, exploiting children, but I would say never submit someone to torture. That is also a human right, which is written, you should never be tortured. But sometimes I can think of some situation, very rare, of course, but in which it could be just, of course, even those cases. That's is the idea. But now I give now the floor, and then I continue. Please, Evangelia.
I think that Daniela's question brings to mind the line of thought that perhaps there are absolutes, but there's a process to discovering them, in the sense that there could be a right or wrong, but there is a process to getting there, and that's why we have arguments over what is moral, and then eventually we redefine what is moral, and then we redefine it again, but perhaps there is a right or wrong.
Well, you say that there is a right and wrong, but we cannot know what it is.
Yes.
Well, this is exactly like to saying that if you are in a dark room, do you have a shadow?
No.
I can say yes, but you cannot see. It is the same. If there is something, this something should be known.
But
It is too easy. It is too easy to say that there is what is right or wrong, but we cannot. There is an absolute, but we don't know which is it.
a shadow requires light, though. So it requires a circumstance.
Well, but you can say that a shadow requires different degrees of light. And when it is dark, it is a zero light, but a zero light, this is the issue if a zero light is a light or is no light.
But that is exactly what I'm saying. Perhaps the circumstance invokes a different set of right and wrong.
Okay.
So like in the same way that you said,
This is to say that there is no absolute. That was. I mean, we should be very careful in using this stuff. But in any case, for instance, one of the classic absolutes, at least in Western morality, I know that we are speaking, we are worldwide, and then this is something which gives me some troubles in speaking, because I know very little about Eastern moralities. But in Western moralities, one absolute was the prohibition of abortion. Abortion was an absolute, and sometimes it was not permitted even in self-defense of a woman. So, of course, you can say, well, it could be, but now either you say that the situation changed because social circumstances now, abortion can be performed in a rather easy way, and so women have control on reproduction. But when reproduction was given, was a divine process, because it was unknown, enchanted, because it is something very very strange and very momentous. It is something in a life. Reproduction is the continuation of life, is connected to immortality. So to interrupt, to stop the reproductive process was prohibited, absolutely prohibited. And this is one important point. Now we are trying, for instance, in the European Union, to say that the right to abortion should be put in European Constitution. You understand that this is a major change in ethics, which after you change in ethics, then it comes to a law in a constitution. Constitution is something which belongs to a legal order. So this is the point. And I ask you, what I wanted to say, it is not only for utilitarianism and consequentialism. Here we have, according to someone, the only goal that morality should reach is utility. I think we can have also justice, not only utility, not only welfare, but also right, equal distribution of the good that are produced. And maybe that such a distribution is not dependent, is not deriving from the principles of beneficence. It might be independent. So that is not only utilitarianism, it's a general view of morality. A morality should lead to increase an adequate, maybe not a maximum, but at least an adequate level of welfare, and which is well distributed, adequately distributed. This is the general idea. And of course, in morality, we have different ways of having duties according to the change of circumstances. Now, artificial intelligence is a major instrument which is changing our social coordination. For instance, and in this sense, if Guido is with us, a question is, how can we evaluate the new instrument? Do we know how they produce their results? This is a problem, for instance, concerning explainability of well, Evangelia is saying no. What no? Evangelia.
It wasn't me. I think it was Daniela.
I just said no. You were asking if we can explain what is happening in the algorithms and if we know what results it will give us. So we can see the results, but we don't know in what way the algorithm is thinking, let's say. Yeah.
Yes, but this was exactly my question to Guido. If we don't know how it works, something which helps our coordination, I'm saying it because in my outline, one point and what I said, when we didn't know the process of reproduction had a sort of sanctity. By the way, just a piece of information, just to set the idea. I said abortion was an absolute prohibition. And one reason for that was that reproduction, there are many reasons, but certainly one, was that reproduction was completely unknown, and being unknown, being involved in a sort of mystery, what is mysterious very often becomes absolute, something like untouchable. And this is, if you don't know something, you are scared to approach it. And that is something. Now, just you to know, only in 1924, Ogino, a gynecologist from Japan, his name is Ogino Knaus, because the other was an Austrian, discovered or stated scientifically the cycle of a woman. That means that until 1924, I mean less than 1 century ago, 99 years ago, humanity didn't have a knowledge of how the reproductive, the scientific knowledge. Of course, humans knew how humans reproduce, but until a century ago, they didn't know how the process scientifically, they didn't didn't know how the process worked. That is what I wanted to say. Now, something similar may happen with artificial intelligence if we don't know how the process works. We take the effect as absolute. And this is something I wanted to ask about the ethics of knowing how the process of artificial intelligence are working, because otherwise there is the risk that they become new absolutes. Silvio De Magistris, please, you have the floor.
Really shortly, I think you mean about, for example, black box in artificial intelligence. So I think there is a very important difference between what human beings develop and what in billion years the nature develop. So we know maybe that how the human give life is a process that came from billion of years from the nature, and instead the men are going to do things with their intelligence that maybe don't do the best for the world. It's a question, yeah. Maybe what we see about the ecological emergency, for example, the Anthropocene, yeah. So it's very important to deal about what men do and create and what the nature in billion years in the equilibrium of the ecosystem did in the past billion years. Yeah, that's a consideration. Yeah.
Well, it is true, but the problem is that whether both the processes are not known, they may be treated in the same way in a long time. That is a problem. In any case, the issue is whether there is an absolute or not, because this is the major split in morality. And usually, and I say usually, I don't say every, but usually religious moralities have absolutes. On the other hand, secular moralities exclude any sort of absolute, and they are open to dilemmas, to balance of different, because not having absolutes doesn't mean not to have any duty or morality. We have moralities, but we have duties to follow rules in order to keep social coordination. But these rules have to be balanced. These duties have to be balanced with different competing duties. And morality is full of dilemmas because we have to state priorities between the different duties. This is the major idea. And we have to change the balance and the equilibrium, the equilibria of different duties in order to reach adequate justice and adequate welfare in a society. This is what morality tries to say, because morality is what leads us to act, to have a spontaneous coordination. And we have now to create new means, new instrument to guarantee such a spontaneous coordination for that. This is the major idea I wanted to this time to tell you in this lecture. Guido, I have this question concerning explainability and transparency of system of artificial intelligence. If you can help us. We cannot hear you. Hello?
Okay. Yeah, explainability will be the topic of my next lesson. Surely it has a big effect also on the side of ethical issues, because in a sense, no, so someone can hear, someone cannot hear.
I can hear very well.
Oh, okay.
I myself, but
okay, also other people is hearing me. Sorry for those who cannot hear well. And yeah, in a sense we are going back in the past with this newest technology, as you were saying, with the case of reproduction. We are going to be in a situation with oracles not anymore talking with the voice of some god, but oracles that are the product of technologies and that are learning on the past, as we also said in the past lesson. So it's somewhat a paradox. They talk about the future, they make predictions. In some cases, probably more accurate than humans, taking in diagnosis. And on the other hand, they will not explain anything to us about their reasoning. Is someone who wants to say something? Because I heard some noise. No?
I have a genuine question. It's not to make a point of anything, but I'm just confused as to why we're referring to reproduction as though it's an issue that's been resolved, because it's one of the biggest debates of our time, especially in the United States, and it becomes increasingly more complex. So I don't know why it's being used as an example as a resolved issue, because it's not really.
Well, thank you. In the United States, I know very well that it is an issue, but not only in the United States. But if you look at the problem from an historical point of view, I mean, I quoted the Ogino-Gnaus law, on knowing of scientific. This is simply scientific stuff. But if you don't know the process, if you don't know how it works, the biology, you cannot control. Now we have a full knowledge or nearly full knowledge, and we can control. Now, of course, there are debates, but those debates, in a sense, are the survival of ancient ideas, because control will come through. As a matter of fact, in the United States, you have a lot of debate, but still you have people putting, like California, Illinois, having the right to abortion in a constitution. Now, to put the right of abortion in a constitution is to change in a constitution, means that it is constituted. Is to change the constitution of a woman, because a woman had a destiny in reproduction, in pregnancies. Now the destiny is to control about these things, and in Europe we are trying to put it in the constitution of European Union, and those are big change. Now, of course, they are controversial, but think in a couple of centuries how the situation will be. Now, the situation is similar because in artificial intelligence, we are going to produce again, not reproduce, because to produce again a situation in which there is a mystery on the processes. That is that I tried the analogy, and I thank Guido, because he could articulate better than I could do the idea of oracles. I didn't think about the oracles speaking and saying some absolute solutions. That is something I think is valuable and should be considered. So I don't know whether I explained why I tried the analogy with reproduction, because in 1764, a famous biologist said, reproduction is a mystery. We don't know anything about 1764. In a book he wrote, reproduction is a mystery. We don't know how reproduction is done. Of course, it took 2 centuries, 69, 80, 90s, yes, 2 centuries before we could get through and control the process. Now, the situation with artificial intelligence is specular and opposite, because we are constructing, making the process of artificial intelligence, but those processes, in a sense, are circumvented by mysteries, and this is what Guido said is the oracles, the new oracles, and that could be a good analogy to be explored. I'm not sure it works. And thank you, Evangelia, for saying this, your real question. But I would say that the current debate are limited to this time in an historical perspective. They are destined to be overcome because knowledge is changing the situation. That is. So should I just assist our decision? That is another problem. Someone in the chat, I see, well, it's a long question by Palmas Grecia, but I cannot read it. Guido, can you do it?
Sorry? What do you need?
I saw, should AI just assist our decisions? I don't know.
It depends on the...
Maybe sometimes AI will replace our decisions.
It's a matter of costs. If you don't have the money to pay enough doctors in hospitals, as is going to happen in Italy, then you will be there will be no alternative to use AI for the decision without anyone to assist, or maybe a general practitioner without a specific expertise in a disease who has to trust the machine. It's not a priori question. It's a problem of how technology is used as a tool in the processes, in the business processes. For example, in the hospitals, given the resources, given the lobby activity, given the costs.
Well, Guido, but this, to have assistance by AI is better than having no assistance at all. And you say it is the best will be to have a doctor, but it means how many could even in the past afford to have doctors. That is a question of comparison, and this is what I think should be seen in history. Daniela.
Yeah, what Guido said is, but isn't it then also like a little invitation for politics to avoid more costs and to arrange things politically in a higher and larger scale level, what is much more sustainable than maybe trying to fix like super quick symptoms with algorithms that are okay working? I always have the problem because I always work a lot with that kind of technology and also in the health sector. And of course, in one way it helps, but as you said in your first talk, Guido, it's all also about politics. It's political decisions that decide, no, what will happen. Yeah, and now what you said now is like, yeah, it made me think. I don't know, what's your opinion? I mean, like, yeah, if we always offer like cheaper and quicker fixes, yeah, what kind of society will we be at the end? I can't hear you.
Yes, Daniela. One point is that when you speak of politics, according to my view, politics is another institution like law and like morality. Now, there is a sense in which politics is dependent on morality, and in another sense in which politics, of course, has to deal with social consensus. While morality, as someone before said, you may have something, you may do what is wrong. Politics, at least in democratic systems, have to deal with consensus, because every some years a government has to the test of the elections, and so you must gain a consensus. But politics is doing and is informed to what is the trend of moral opinions. That is what I would say.
Totally, Mr. Mori. But as we changed, I mean, like we have a little change. No, it's not like classic democratic society. I know some people would not agree, but as we are more and more going to this neoliberal like society where more and more like companies take decisions, what we can also see in, especially in AI, that rules aren't applied by every company. The companies that make like the biggest impact in AI or ChatGPT, they do their own rules. Yeah, I mean, like, is it still then, if it refers to technology, is it still that explanation that we really have like a democratic way as a citizen to participate in decision making of how we want to use technology or how we want to fix these problems? I mean, it's a big question.
Well, the question is that such a big change like artificial intelligence, which can provide you some decisions or some hints to do something, has to be included in a wider social system. And this might influence even democratic stuff. Like, think at the Cambridge Analytics scandal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That is something important, because then our political systems had been built up with some small number of people can decide the majority. And this is a problem, because sometimes, for a handful majority, you have a ruling. And this is a real problem, because this handful majority may be conditioned by artificial intelligence or by other technologies. But this is a political problem. I had to speak about ethics, and I said that ethics is a peculiar social institution, which is different from politics, from law, from economics, from science. Those are different issues. I tried to say that ethics has rules, and we have to know which are the rules, and there is a distinction between religious ethics and secular ethics, and in general, but not always, religious ethics provides absolutes, while secular ethics does not provide absolutes. That is what I tried to convey. And I say that this is important because we have to have new machines, and we have to see whether this change of situation will influence society and morality, sorry. This is the first issue. And the second issue is on what will be the morality of this of artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence is reacting with us, and we have to include a sort of morality in artificial intelligence. And what kind of morality do we will instill, put into artificial intelligence? Shall we introduce an absolute morality or a prima facie morality? That is what I wanted to convey in this lecture. So I think we have time for another question, if there is a question, and then it's going to be time around 11 that we stop.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, who is speaking? Itoro, oh, yes, you had been registered since long. Please, you have the floor. We don't hear you now any longer.
Yeah, can you hear now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, good, thank you. So the thing here is that I've been speaking to people based on my studies in developing countries about AI ethics, and then because you've been talking about the process, we're not knowing the process and what the outcome would be. But in this sense, I'm looking at people, not the process at this instance, where majority of the people in a certain environment do not understand what AI actually is, and do not even have idea when they have been exploited by AI, or do not even know the mobile phones they use comprises of some AI apps that takes information up and front. They do not have ideas about these things, how it works. And that keeps me wondering, if these people do not understand what AI is, how does the results of the AI affect them? Or does it also mean they have to accept whatever outcome because they do not know? Something like that.
Exactly. This is, let's say, a danger which can be around in AI, but in artificial intelligence. But of course, there are, I mean, this is the problem. The issue is whether people not knowing how artificial intelligence works, how can react to them. But my problem is that since such an instrument is changing the way in which a society will be coordinated, which will be the effect on a morality if we have to change the rules for morality on that. That is my problem, and I tried to say, because if you have an absolute, this is independent of social condition, but if you have no absolute, as I think we should have, of course, then we are going to change completely the rules according to the new historical situation. Evangelia.
I also have one more question about why you keep saying that religion deals in absolutes, because my perception is that most religions actually contain a lot of ambiguity, and sort of the fundamental nuance of most religious texts is just look up, There are some, of course, very basic rules, but for example, there has always been debate about whether science fits into religion or not. I mean, there's not a clear definition of that in any religious text, and people debate about it. And then sort of the underlying thing in religion is just pray, just look up, just look to God. I mean, it doesn't seem fundamentally that absolute, if you get what I'm saying.
Well, in a sense, you are right. In only one sense. In fact, I said usually and not always. The issue is whether, which is, I mean, whether the real problem is which is the novelty of our time. That is the problem. Because secularization is a phenomenon which is rather new in history. I do agree that we have, let's put some coordinate point to coordinate the issue. History started about 8,000-10,000 years ago. History was coordinated, started when we had written documents, and writing started, let's say, 8,000 years ago. That's now, you say we had only few written documents. Now we can replicate the world. Think, for instance, of taking pictures. Usually we started to taking pictures a century in 1900s, only 2 centuries ago. Now, when you see a tourist, he's coming with photos, and from the beginning to the end, he's replicating, he's filming everything. And this is something completely new. Now, because we have documents on all our lives, not only of the major events in our life. Now, if you think of that, the issue is where we are standing in history. Because if we are standing in a change, in a turning point, and secularization is changing the perception of life, then this is the point. Even religion has to change. And you are right in saying that sometimes religions are not so clear, depends on which religion is changing or not. On the other hand, there are those who still claim that religion is what is stable and fixed and should never change. That is the problem of our society. The problem we have in history, this is the biggest problem, and artificial intelligence is a part of this process, because artificial intelligence is changing completely the way in which we can communicate and we can deal with new material, new perspective. We can have records of how we are. But think, for instance, this lecture is now recorded. We do not have Aristotle's lectures, but we still have this lecture, and maybe, let's say, forever. This is something completely new in history. How it will change and affect our social coordination. Of course, in the past, the only eternal things were those recorded by God. Now we are, in a sense, replicating God because we are keeping track of all our events.
So it's more of a discussion around how society is structured as opposed to what is actually suggested by religion. Okay.
Exactly, exactly. Thank you for such a synthesis. Congratulations. Okay.
Thank you for your response.
Guido.
Thanks, Maurizio. Has been really lively lesson, and thanks all the students who made questions and said their opinions. So I'm still available for technical questions concerning the course, exams, certifications, and so on. So we can set Maurizio free. But if there is no question, ciao, Maurizio.
If there is a question, I take some other question, but if they are urgent, otherwise, thank you, and I'm scheduled for another time. I try to think of something else to be more inside in the problems. This was a general stuff trying to give an idea of what ethics is. Okay?
It has been clear and useful. Thanks.
Ciao. Thank you very much to everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
So,
Goodbye.
any other question instead on credits, exam, lessons? So the final exam, I'm writing also now on the website. It is, let's say, original because we want to highlight the need of disseminating these issues, not just debating among scientists. So it is a 2 pages report on an ethical issue concerning AI, possibly if you are working on AI connected to your research work. In any case, write us an email. So it is a 2-page report for the general public, trying to explain what are the issues concerning your research or a topic concerning AI. For those who need an exam, please write to the usual info@sipeia.it address. There is no strict deadline. You say in the mail when you propose the topic, how much time do you need? We don't have any requirement.
I have one question.
Please.
Because I missed the beginning. In order to get the certificate, how many of all of the lectures do we have to attend?
Okay, let's say 3 out of 4. And there are always the recordings. The problem is that for people only listening to the recordings, we cannot have a proof of what they did. So for those people, we need an exam.
So to get the certificate, you need the exam.
No, only if you don't attend at least 3 lessons. The certificate, so there are, let's say, the problem is like this. There is people who need the certificate for their PhD program, but not the exam. So we keep the 2 things separate. For people who need the exam, they take the exam, and they get the result and obviously the certificate, even if they didn't attend all the lessons. But we trust they listen to the recordings. For people who needs only the attendance certificate, we look at the form and at the chat in the previous lesson, and we provide the attendance certificate. That's the situation. Is it clear?
Yes.
Okay, Serene is asking, do we have to discuss? No, just send it and solicit an answer after a while from us. Please. Other questions? No? Okay, Farman, I hope you filled the form also. And see you at the next lesson. And have a look at the website for whatever news or information, or just write to us. Bye-bye.
Ciao, thank you, Prof. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.